Everybody, how are we doing? Good morning. Welcome to this session looking at radio in the car with Radioplayer. In case anybody thinks something really dramatic has happened, I'm not James Cridland. He sent his apologies. He's got some excuse like there's some cyclones in Australia, and apparently getting in an aeroplane in a cyclone is considered a bad idea. So I'm very honoured and delighted to be here as a stand-in. The car is it's a perennial topic at this conference, and it was highlighted yesterday in our opening because the Deputy Minister to the Prime Minister, Pavlos Marinikas, said that the car dashboard might save the future of radio itself. So no pressure, everybody, we've got to get this right. In contrast, Thomas Granrid from Swedish Radio said that radio in the car is a mess. So this session is going to have a look at where we are now in 2025, what the challenges are we face as an industry and how we can all work together, and also look at where we want to be in 5 years' time. And to set the scene of all the work that Radioplayer is currently doing, please welcome Laurence Harrison.
Kalimera. Good morning, everyone. You all right? Yes, thank you very much. So I'm just going to take 10 minutes at the start just to set the scene and talk a bit about what Radioplayer is doing to put radio back in control in connected car dashboards. Now I know that a lot of you here, there's a lot of friends and family here, and you'll know who Radioplayer are. But I did want to say a few words of introduction. The first thing I want to say is thank you, because I know a lot of you guys here are broadcasters who've probably been supporting Radioplayer since the start 10 years ago and continue to do so now. And without your support, we wouldn't be where we are today, making the contributions we are to keeping radio strong. So thank you for that. We're owned only by broadcasters, acting strategically on their behalf. And what we focus on in the car is keeping radio prominent and strong. We think that's going to secure radio listening into the future. And to do that, we create partnerships with car makers. So we have over 4 million cars on European roads today, and partnerships with 15 car makers with more announcements to come. So that's Radioplayer, but in terms of the initiative we're talking about, what are the issues we're actually trying to address? So we think I can break that down into 3 areas. The first one is complexity, and Anne just mentioned that. Thomas talked about it in his session yesterday. You know, we see 2 environments now emerging in new cars coming onto the road. There's the broadcast radio environment, where most of the listening to radio happens, and there's a new app environment where you can listen to radio, broadcasters' own apps, but the 2 are separate, and we think that creates complexity for the user. And partly because of that, there's also additional radio content that they're not getting access to, either because it could be in an app or because, you know, the on-demand content, podcasts, catch-up shows aren't delivered with live radio. And thirdly, we think the radio industry needs a really clear, strong vision to put radio back into control, and that's what we're talking about today. So, what's our approach? Well, I mentioned prominence, and it's not the last time you're going to hear that in this session. We make no excuse for that. It's a real focus for us. We think we need to be fighting for radio's prominence in amongst all the other entertainment sources. Now, partly we can secure that through partnerships with car makers, but we also need to create an amazing user experience. That's crucial. If we do that right, we'll gain the prominence we want. And again, our focus is on the radio listening. We need to keep that strong or even grow it in connected cars. And the way to do that is to focus on the user. I know there's a tendency, we're in the industry, we can get caught up in the technology, what it can do, but we must remember at all times, and this is really important for Radioplayer, the user comes first, the listener in the car, and that should be our focus. So, what's the vision? What's the longer term vision? Well, we're working, we'll be collaborating with the industry on this, but for us, you can boil it down into that single sentence, a single unified radio experience in the car. No complexity. The complexity in the technology is hidden from the user. You know, this experience will keep radio prominent. It should bring together on-demand content, catch-up shows, podcasts with live radio. It should bridge the gap between broadcast radio and the app environment, and it should be based on broadcast radio and the internet technologies too, and enable users to take a deep dive into your station's content. So that's the kind of the longer term vision that we're aiming for. But we think there's a number of steps we can take on the way to that journey, to achieving that vision. So the first step is, I mentioned earlier, these two environments, is making that link to broadcasters' apps where the user might be able to find more content. And again, there was a good session yesterday which talked in detail about that. We think there's another step where you can actually then have a seamless link to the right content you want, more contextual content based on what you're listening to now. If you like this, you might want more. And then eventually we will get to that vision. And I think having that as an aim is key for all of us. But I know some of you, I hope most of you, all of you, came to our stand and had a look at the new prototype that we're showing on the stand. It's a working hybrid radio, and that delivers on those first two steps, we think. There's more work to do, but that delivers on it. And I'm just going to show you a quick video. We spent a huge amount of money on a top presenter, celebrity, to walk us through the demo, and I'm just going to play that for you now.
We're at Radiodays 2025. We're showing some fantastic innovations here on the stand to our broadcaster partners. Radio Player's main focus now is to keep radio listening strong in the car. And we've got a brand new prototype demonstration, and I'm going to show it to you. Let's have a look. What you see here is automotive grade hardware and software, and we've built this in Google's Android Automotive operating system. Now, there's two things that are special about this operating system. Firstly, Google offer a standard broadcast radio experience in this, and unfortunately, it's not a very good one. You can see here, no station logos, searching by frequency. It's not that great. The second thing about this is that as well as having broadcast radio, you can also download radio apps direct to the dashboard. And you can see here, there's an application from a radio station in Greece, live radio, podcasts, and on demand. Now, if we go into the radio button that Radio Player has created, you'll see a very different experience. This is a working hybrid radio. That's where broadcast, FM and DAB, works alongside the internet. If you select a station on FM, it will default and play on the broadcast radio. If you drive out of broadcast coverage, it will switch to streaming over the internet, so the broadcaster never loses their listener. This is a simple A to Z station list. All the station logos and station names are being provided by Radio Player. What's really cool about this is that we have implemented for the first time our device syncing feature. So you can now sync your mobile app, your smart TV app, with the broadcast hybrid radio in the car. And it's very easy to do, but when you do that, if you select a station here, you can see that that station is now synced in the mobile app and also in the smart TV app here. That means if you select this station in the car, then get out of the car and turn on your mobile app, the same station will be playing there, or in your smart TV app, or it will be the same podcast that you were listening to. The second thing is this feature here, the More feature. So if you are listening to a radio station such as this one, and they have a broadcaster app downloaded in the system, and the listener wants to find out more, they want more content from this radio station, either podcasts or on demand or a catch-up show, you press the More button and it will seamlessly link to the broadcaster's app in the system where they can then find the content they want. Of course, we also have the ability to set favourites, recent stations, and AI-based recommendations. So what we're showing here today is the first step on creating a vision for what radio will look like in connected cars in the next 3, 5, 7 years.
Well, thank you. Worth every penny, that guy. He was amazing. So just to sort of summarise in terms of the approach we're taking, and I can't emphasise this enough, we're putting the listeners and radio first. That's so important to us. And if we do that, we believe we'll be able to secure radio's prominence in connected car dashboards of the future. We know within Radio Player that whatever the solutions we create are around this unified radio experience, they're going to work for all stations, all of the stations that are part of Radio Player, public service, commercial, large or small, it doesn't matter. The features that we implement will work for you. And importantly, we're taking a collaborative approach. That's what Radio Player was built on, founded on. So I'll be working with EBU Playbook, AER, our stations, car makers, But the point of this is it's really your development. You are part of Radio Player, you drive Radio Player's agenda, the broadcasters here, and we take that really seriously, that collaboration. But don't take my word for it. I'm just going to finish with a bit of feedback from some of the people that came and tried the prototype in terms of what they liked about it and what they want to see us improve on in the future.
I mean, I really like that someone is using collaboration and innovation to work for the future of this industry, because I think the biggest threat for radio is being obliterated from the car, from the dashboard, from smart speakers and all those gatekeepers. The demo was really good, and what I loved was the hybrid radio and how you're serving the solution ready for car makers and for us as radio stations.
Me parece muy útil y quizá lo que más me ha llamado la atención es la posibilidad de seguir escuchando una misma radio a través de diferentes canales, ¿no? Tanto la parte de FM como la digital, ¿no? Y que pueda combinar. Me gustaría poder llegar a disfrutar de la radio de otros países, o sea, tener esa posibilidad, pero creo que esto será un siguiente paso, ¿no?
Yeah, I think it's pretty cool because first of all, it's something a single radio station couldn't do. Yeah, so it's very important for the whole branch. I like the seamless interaction between the devices. So, for example, if I switch on a podcast at night and I can't finish it, and then I go to my car the next morning, drive to work, I can continue listening at the same point. And that's a really nice feature to keep the audience with the brand. I very much like this link out feature, you know, that links to your own app in the car where you have your own brand. There's one feature from a programming standpoint of view I'd really like to have, and that's a tune out information. I'd like to see if certain amount of listeners tune out like with a certain song, you know, and if I could have this data as well, that'd be awesome. You know, that would be great for programming.
Creo que tenemos que ir, yo creo que la base ya se ha establecido. Tenemos que ir al contenido, ¿no? A poder amplificar todas las posibilidades que nos da, y es la de poder no solo escuchar el streaming, sino tener la radio a la carta, que es lo que ahora mismo se consume más. Ahora mismo se consume básicamente la radio en streaming, pero además la radio a la carta es importante, y la posibilidad de escuchar podcasts y otros contenidos alternativos.
I mean, one thing that I see is that the industry needs a lot of convincing to collaborate on initiatives like Radio Player and come together and be on board. So we need more countries, more public radio stations as well as commercial ones, and to have scale within this industry, because that's the only way it's going to avoid that big threat of obliteration, like it happened with when the FM receiver was removed from the iPhone. I don't want to see that again. So.
Come up. Excellent. So we've got to avoid obliteration. So again, no pressure, everyone. So we're delighted to have a load of experts from around the world here. So let's kick straight into looking at some of the issues. I know, isn't it lovely to have so many people here looking at the future and where we're going to be. So if we could just begin, if you could just introduce yourself, tell us where you're from and what you or your organisation is currently doing in terms of car dashboards, just so that everyone who doesn't know you can get to know you.
Okay, hi everyone, I'm Gwen. I work for ARD, Germany's public service broadcaster, and I lead a team that is responsible for all audio distribution, so podcast platforms, but also we distribute our app, the ARD Audiothek, and for us, one of the main priorities is automotive. So we actually have, in my team, there's 3 people working on automotive full-time, because it's such a strategic priority for us. And for us, the priority is on the one hand to keep radio present, so to keep radio, have it be a great user experience, but to also give users the opportunity to get more on-demand content in the car through our own app.
Excellent. So the public service broadcasting and doing
Yes.
your own thing, and yeah, excellent. And then we have Stefan.
Stefan Möller. Here I'm representing AER, the Association of European Radios, with over 5,000 radio stations as members. And being an association based in Brussels, but basically I live in Helsinki in Finland. My normal job is to be the CEO for the trade body in Finland called Radio Media. But in Brussels and with AER, which I now represent here, how we work is of course with legislation and looking it from that side and to protect the interests of the car. And it's a very important issue for us, that increasing competition with big techs, platforms and so on. And I still remember those times when radio was the only media in the car, and that hasn't been for quite a while now. So we need to be on top of things also when it comes to legislation.
So we have a public service perspective, a commercial perspective, and then on the end, we hope most of you know this gentleman, but if not,
Yes.
you want to introduce yourself and explain?
Yes, of course. Yann Legarson, the CEO of Radioplayer Worldwide. Je viens de France, and I'm really passionate about radio, and I discovered a new passion during these 3 days, the coffee machine. So thank you very much for coming a lot. Yes, I'm really happy to be here together to speak with all of you, and because Radioplayer is in the middle, 50-50, 50 public services, 50% commercial radio. So we are, yes, maybe the bridge to try to keep and develop the prominence of radio in the car. So thank you very much.
We're going to be talking a lot about the issues that are currently facing the industry in terms of getting radio onto the car and having a great experience in the dashboard. And one of those, as highlighted in the video, is user experience. But we also have a virtual speaker who's kind of a video link speaker, but a pre-recorded one. So we have a contribution here from Asha Knight from BBC Distribution, who is talking about some of the issues and challenges that she thinks we're facing.
That they have a really confusing experience, and all of the data we see points to the fact that the car is quite a habitual space for audiences. They want to go there and listen to what they know. They want to access it easily. They don't want to spend an awful lot of time trying to find that content. We saw some research recently, I think it was in like a trade magazine, like Autocar or something. It said it took something like uses something like 19 clicks or something sometimes to find a radio. So we're seeing that people want to find the radio, but we don't understand why that's being made harder, when all the evidence points to the fact that radio is still really important to our audiences in cars.
So we used to have 1 click to find the radio, now we've got 19. How are you, you're doing a lot of work to develop apps, like how are you approaching trying to solve that problem from your perspective? Because you're doing stuff that's separate and outside a radio player as well as inside it.
Well, for us, the main starting point is still the radio. So we're not kidding ourselves. Apps are the new hype. All the car manufacturers want to talk about apps, and it's very important because it's important to prepare for the future. But we know from data that radio listening is still the vast majority of audio consumption in the car. So we're really trying to use the radio as a starting point to engage people with ARD, to listen to the brands that they love, and that's why we're so excited about this idea of linking out of the radio, so to give people, to kind of bridge the gap between those two worlds, because right now it's very much separate. So for us, the top priority is that radio is not 19 clicks away, but 1 click away, ideally. And I really think that if we manage to make radio a more interesting and more modern experience, then it's also going to be easier, alongside with regulation, to convince car manufacturers that it's a good idea to have a radio button, to have that front and center, and to highlight all the possibilities that radio has, that it's not just that it can be a smart radio, there can be a link to the App Store.
Yeah, and so this is like, how do we get a really good dashboard for radio, and how do we balance the priorities for broadcasters who might be like, but we've worked really hard developing our own apps and brand identity, and then how we actually get it so that we don't have 19 clicks. Because I don't know how cars are staying on the road if you're having to say 19. I think the only answer is that you have to have a chauffeur, right? That's going to be the thing. So what kind of approaches are we seeing? Like, what's Radio Player doing in terms of trying to get that good dashboard for radio? Because there's different approaches on stage here to how we solve these problems.
Yeah, we strongly believe in hybrid radio. The combination between DAB, FM, and IP, the best of the two worlds. And we really think it's time to have just one voice for an industry. We are representing more than 7,000 stations, I think, in Europe and in Canada too. So I think it's now really important to stop to lose time, to be all united together with just one message, because we all want the same. We want, the prominence of the radio button. So the competition is not internally anymore, but more externally. We are number one today in European roads with more than 4 million cars on road. So I think Radio Player is the solution, and what we are trying to do is to convince the car makers not about the importance of audio, news, talk, etc., but more the importance of radio in general. Because in the car, you need to keep the simple access to information, to entertainment, to all the benefits of radio, and we don't want to be in the middle of nowhere, in the middle of 40 different apps. So you need to have just one voice to communicate with the OEM, with the car makers, because at the end, do you really think that BMW, Volkswagen, Renault, Stellantis, and all the others have enough resources to negotiate one by one with 7,000 stations in Europe? I don't think so. And at the end, for the listeners, I think it's also good to have everything in one place. And with what Laurence presented before, the button to access to the broadcaster apps, we could, find a bridge between the broadcast world, the broadcaster apps world, and to find the best solution, the best radio experience for the listeners, priority for the listeners.
But in many terms, we've been saying this for a long time, right?
Oh, yes.
We need to work together. We need to have the car industry to listen to us. So what are the barriers to that? Like we were joking about what are the car industry talking about when they're sitting at Car Days Europe and they've got like what best tyres should we have over here? And are they having whole sessions going, how do we get radio in the car? We're stuck. Like what is their perspective?
I think the first obstacle is just to make the car makers understood that it's really important to keep radio alive in the car. The people we have in front of us all the time have between 20 and 30 years old. So you imagine their radio consumption. It's more on-demand content. It's more oriented to podcast, Spotify, etc. So first of all, we have to explain why it's important to keep radio alive, because yes, in France, it's still 40 million people that listen to radio every day. So that's the first step. About a question for the obstacles. I think we all believe, and I'm like you in the radio world for a long time, but we all believe that we can do it by ourselves. It was possible for us to propose our own website in the past, our own apps. Now we all think that it's possible to propose our own automotive environment. Maybe it's true, but only for your listeners, the listeners that already know your station. How do you want to attract new listeners with your own brand and your own stations? It's possible, of course, but always, forever, we will have a need to have in one place everything. All the stations, small, large, public, commercial, and to be sure to convince, all the car industry that have, savings to do. When you have some news from Renault, Stellantis, BMW, and the others, it's not so good news for the European industry. So they need to save money, they need to have just one point of contact, and that's why we are here. And yes, we hope that now, finally in 2025, we will all work together, and I think we are in a good way to do it.
So the Radio Player approach to getting good experience for all of the industry in the car dashboard is to work together, to collaborate, to convince the industry to speak at one voice. Gwen, you agree with that too, I'm guessing, but also you have been having more of a guerrilla tactic in Germany, where you're kind of lobbying the car manufacturers directly as well.
As well, we do. It's
Exactly.
both, right? I mean, we're very lucky at ARD that we of course have quite some car manufacturers locally that know our brand. And
just to explain for people who might not know ARD, they're based in Germany, and apparently Germany's quite good at making cars.
Apparently.
So you're able to have some direct conversations as well.
Yes, but we're very much aware that that's not going to be forever, and there's a huge move of Chinese electric vehicles coming to the market, and they're going to understand us or listen to us in a very different way than people that listen to our radio stations every day and happen to work at a German car manufacturer. So we also need to prepare for that.
So we've got working together and collaborate. We've got I mean, I don't know how it would work in Britain. We take people out for a beer, but in Germany, you're taking the car, you're making friends with the car manufacturers because you're in the same city. And then, Stefan, your organisation's got a different line of approaching this, because your proposal is that we work more with legislators.
Of course, the user experience is very important. But think about it, in a perfect world, wouldn't it be nice that the radio would be mandatory in the car? Like by law, you need to have seat belts, then you need to have a radio receiver. And I think from a legislation point of view, that would be the dream that we are working towards. I will not go into more details with that, but because at the same time when you're working with lawmakers and in Brussels, you need also to be careful when you are opening things up that you don't ruin what you already achieved. But that, talking about what is the perfect world, is that you have it by law, that there needs to be a radio in the car. And it has so much more to do with it than entertainment and other content. It's also about security and safety in these days what we are living now. So I was even thinking about it for Radioplayer as an idea. That it would
Here's
be
your
so
chance to pitch.
It would be so great that through Radioplayer, if the listener is listening to a podcast through Radioplayer, then if there's a warning message coming in that area, it would cut out that and tell the driver or the people in the car that there's something going. I'm not talking about that they have seen a wolf somewhere. That's not the thing, but the really important warning things that the officials are making. So when you are on an on-demand listening also through Radioplayer, it would help also in that way. At least I think that feature would help in, I would say, lobbying. I hate the word lobbying. Interest protection that we are doing in Brussels for the radio industry. But that's one important point that we work on.
You're just make it a legal requirement, which is absolutely fine for those of you who've remembered to be part of the European Union. But of course there are.
Yes.
Sorry,
yeah, but if I may add on that, I think it's kind of two legs that we need to stand on. One is regulation, and of course it's a perfect scenario if radio is mandatory, but we've seen what a standard Android automotive radio looks like. It's great if it's mandatory, but then it still doesn't look that great. So I think that's the one foot, and then the other foot we need to stand on is actually shaping what we want radio to look like in the future, not just... Yeah,
I think the industry itself, and is that true radio player, whatever, needs to help the car industry with how the radio is looking like, because we heard during this that the experience with every service is not that good.
What you say is also related to the fake news and all the other stuff, and the fact is that we are, all of us, European players. I think it's really important, especially these days. So I think it's important for us collectively to protect our content, our distribution, and just to avoid to see this safe world destroyed by new players that just maybe don't care about, if this news is true or not. I just want to make audience with my platform. So yes, I think also it's time for European people maybe to wake up a little bit and to work all together in the European Union, or just outside, but across the European borders, with a technology made in Europe, with a technology that will take care of just the truth and will help, we hope, the European people to know more about what's going on really everywhere in all countries.
Okay, so it's lovely. We can all sit up and here on stage going, it's wonderful, we're here to build world peace, we're all going to work together, we're going to have this amazing experience. Everyone in this room's like, of course radio is the most important thing in the world. But I mean, is there, even amongst the broadcasters, right, is there still other broadcasters in the room who are like not on board with this? Or how do we get the internal discussions happening? Because equally we have the reality, and we all know it, that you might have in your organisation, you're developing your own skills, your own apps, your own experience. There's a tension just within the organisation around what your strategy should be, because you've got the choice to do your own thing. You come onto Radioplayer. There are also other companies out there being like, I'm sure Spotify and other organisations would be delighted to be like, we want to be the place. So as a broadcaster, what should you be thinking about in terms of or what are your members thinking about in terms of their strategy? Kind of going it alone and coming in with aggregators? Do you go on to everything? Like, how do you choose as a broadcaster what your priorities should be?
I don't think it's an either or. Maybe that's naive of me, but I think we're at ARD, our stance is we're going to work with anyone that's supporting us in realizing our vision, what radio and audio in the car should be. And so far, Radioplayer has been a great partner in that. And
thank you.
You're very welcome. I got a lot of money to say that. No.
Yes, you're on the session.
No.
Whose session is this?
Paying everyone, not me.
Of course.
But we get a coffee. Yeah.
But to be transparent, we're going to, as I said, we're going to work with anyone that's helping us realizing our vision that aligns with our values, and that's what we're doing. So I don't think it's an either or. I think that's the great thing. What I really liked about the collaboration with Radioplayer so far is that you respect that for ARD. It's one of our strategic priorities to have our own app. And instead of saying like, oh, this doesn't work with our strategic goals, we sat together and we talked about, okay, how can we combine this to make a great user experience? Because one of the reasons why we're building our own automotive app is that we believe that in addition to the radio, it's a great user experience.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think there is a space for a lot of players in this industry, but you should just take care of your distribution now to avoid some problem in the future. Let's imagine a world where another player, not a radio company like we are, but a tech giant, just take the control of the radio distribution in the car. It's something like 50% of your listening every day. So are you sure that you want to lose the control of 50% of your distribution? I think it's something we have to take care now, not in 2 years or 3 years' time. So we should stop to have this kind, I think, internally in our industry, conversation about broadcaster app, no broadcaster app. I think it's a reality. As a brand, you need to have your own apps. You need to continue to take care of your listeners under your own umbrella. But what is clear is that we will never be in a world where your brand will be alone somewhere in the dashboard. And again, I think there is no space for 7,000 stations in the car dashboard. Spotify, it's one brand for all the music owners in the world. Netflix, you can have, 1,000 movies and series. Why car makers will say yes to 7,000 apps? It will never happen. So we have to collaborate together just to control the distribution. But about the question of broadcaster apps or no broadcaster apps, of course, you should be on Android Automotive. And I'm a bit worried sometimes to see that in my market, for example, my first market, France, my lovely country, only Radio France today has an Android Automotive app. So, yes, let's collaborate together, but try not to oppose some strategy and different strategy. We just have to. Yeah, the only point that we have to take care of is that you have just one voice for the car makers, because they will not wait, 2 years just to be sure that we will be all aligned on the same message. They will not wait us. So let's go.
And within your organisation, are your members sort of seeing, just as they might say, I want to broadcast on FM and I have to make sure that I have a distribution path there, I want to broadcast on DAB. Are people thinking about, I want to broadcast onto the car as a platform and realising that the radio player option gives them the ownership of that? Mm-hmm. Or is there like a lack of awareness with some broadcasters about what the difference is between going onto something like Radio Player versus doing a different option, which may or may not exist?
I think from our members' perspective, it's right what Yann said. We have the big companies that have the possibility to build their own apps, and they need to have them. But we have a lot of member stations that don't have the possibility to do that. And through that, it's better to go to a commercial app outside than one is from the broadcasting side, where the broadcasters work together already, and through that, get their own station onto the service. So, and I think what Yann is saying is perfect, and you're true that collaboration, working together, I think this Radiodays has been very good. We had good talks, AER and EBU for the future. We all realized that we need to work together.
Absolutely.
And rather keep a control than to let that go to some commercial providers.
I just would like to come back to your question about aggregators. It's a strange question for us because I don't think we are an aggregator. Because, there is a real difference. You own Radio Player. It's your property. It's not my property. I'm just an employee. But it's your company altogether in the 26 countries we have now. So we are not an aggregator because we are not here to make money with your content. We are here just to be sure that the radio button will be still prominent, not the Radio Player button. In our demo in Austin, you can see powered by Radio Player, but it's just for the demo, because the radio button will never be called Radio Player. We don't care. We just want to see our content somewhere. So I think we should stop also to say aggregator. And I'm not against the aggregator, but they just want to make money with a tech solution. They don't care about radio. They could do the same with video or with another medium. So, yeah, we are not an aggregator. I just wanted to remind it.
That's absolutely fine. It's fair enough. He's in charge of Radio Play. He should be saying that. And then I think sometimes at these events, it can be quite difficult if you're in the audience and you're like, well, I don't actually own a radio company. I'm not the managing director of a public service broadcaster. So what can producers and journalists and content makers do to contribute to making a really good experience on the dashboard? Like if you're here and you're a program maker and you don't have the power to go and lobby car companies yourself, what can you actually do to help contribute to this and make it a great experience? You're all producers.
I can start from my technological point of view. I think what is important for us is just to have information about what you are doing, because we don't know. 7,000 stations, we are a certain amount of people in London and everywhere in Europe, but do you imagine it's complicated for us to know what you are doing in your radio station? So please share your metadata. It's a strange word, but just share your information with us. I want to know the name of your DJ in the morning between 6 and 9, because it will help me to create a link between the broadcast, DAB or FM, and the podcast platform on your broadcaster app. So I need to have all the information you have to just improve the experience of the listeners. I think it's time for radio stations just to change the way we imagine a business. Metadata and information about what we are doing, it's maybe same level of importance as just the quality of the sound or something like that. So more information equal a better experience in the car, not for us, just for the listeners.
That was mainly a question as an excuse so that we could collectively sound the metadata klaxon, so yeah. Make sure you kind of your title, your artist information is all good, and then it will flow through and look
the
very
last
nice.
song of Britney Spears.
Yeah.
We all love Britney.
And so we've been thinking about the problems that we're facing at the moment and why we need to keep talking about this to kind of keep it top of mind so that the radio is still there in the dashboard. But like looking to the future, if we're in 2030, what would you be liking to see? What should we be achieving? Where should we be? And as a user, what should I have in my car dashboard in 5 years' time?
I mean, not to be, but the reality is with cars is that a lot of people drive their car for a long time. So also the solutions that are coming to the market now are in many cases going to be the ones that are still on the road in 5 years. But if I'm thinking about the cars that are coming to the market in 2030, I would hope that there's still radio, but that radio is just, I have to say that.
I think we all hope there's still radio.
But I do really think that the ideal experience would be that I start the radio, and that's just a door opener to all different kind of content. And we all know that with generative AI and so on, we're moving to a world that's not necessarily going to be app-based anymore, but content-based. So it depends on, do I actually get the content that I want when I start my drive? So ideally, I start the radio, I maybe start with live radio, but then I get a recommendation for a podcast that's just as long as my drive is going to be, because my car knows that I'm going to be driving for 15 minutes, so it's going to give me a 15-minute podcast, and it's going to be based on my listening habits before. So that would be the ideal scenario, and I don't think it's unrealistic, because the technology is there. It's just up to us to actually communicate that vision to the rest of the industry.
Excellent, thank you very much. We have also got a virtual contribution. I want to make sure we haven't forgotten Anna's contribution. So we've got a virtual contribution on that question as well from Anna. If we can.
The difference is you can turn on your radio and it's still the most prominent part of your dash for entertainment and media services. But when you do so, you have your live radio streams, but you also have an amazing outward journey to other content from broadcasters, so you can get a brilliantly personalised experience from your radio providers, as well as having access to the main radio in the dash that they're used to. That would be a great outcome for us.
And Stefan, if you could give me like a one-word vision for your future, just for the future of
One
HB.
word vision
Well,
for the future.
A one-word, like what would you want to
What
see?
it would be like in 2030.
Your one
when
future
you open
should
the
be
door,
there.
it said, "Welcome to your radio on wheels." That is going to be the future.
I don't think we can really top that.
Maybe the transition is a bit hard. No, I hope in 2030 we will have stopped to have this kind of conversation altogether. I hope that Radio Days will be in country in the south of Europe with a lot of sun. And for the dashboard, yes, like when I think content focus and not speak about FM, DAB, IP. I think we are the only one to take care about the name of the of the signals. So I just hope that radio will be still prominent and we will be loud and proud to say that radio is the key in the car and not to be shy a little bit and afraid by Netflix and all the others. So let's embrace the future all together and yeah, let's do it.
Excellent. And if people want to go and see the car on wheels of the radio, go and see the amazing demonstration they've got on the Radioplayer
It's a
stand.
good demo, by the way. So
and the coffee. Please go
Yeah,
and carry on the
coffee,
conversation.
please take your time.
Yeah.
It's gonna be a bit fun.
Yeah, but thank you very much, and we look forward to seeing what happens in 5 years.
Thank you.
Thanks you all.
Thank you.